All right, hi everyone. Welcome to week 18, class 2. Yesterday we did Prisma. Today we are doing Next.js. Prisma is not a prerequisite for Next.js, so don't worry if you skipped yesterday's class. React is a prerequisite for Next.js, so if you don't know React, then feel free to skip the class. And also, TypeScript would probably be a prerequisite. Tailwind would be a prerequisite. So, React, Tailwind, TypeScript, if you don't know either one of these, it'll be a mildly hard class. Otherwise, should be fairly straightforward. Next.js isn't too difficult if you know React decently well. So that's what we'll focus on today. Primarily, the things to cover include introducing Next.js. One of the benefits that Next.js provides you, what is the waterfalling problem, the offerings of Next.js, creating a simple Next.js application, routing, some very basic projects, layouts and subroutes, merging routes, creating your own components, and client and server components. So this is what we'll cover today. We probably need one more class on, just, I wouldn't say Next.js basics, I would say Next.js advanced. And then a few more classes on client-side rendering, server-side rendering, static-side generation. So probably this week and next week would be Next.js, and then we'll see where we go from there. Okay? With that, we'll get right into it. Today is about Next.js introduction and prerequisite for Today is about Next.js introduction. This slide is about some prerequisites before you proceed. You need to understand the basics of front end before you proceed on this track. That includes very basic DOM manipulation if you know, and React if you know. Only then will you be able to understand Next.js. So ye dekh lena bhai. If it feels a little complicated through the upcoming slides, drop off, finish React first, then come back to this video. Let's introduce Next.js. So long story short, React had some shortcomings. Now the team is much more active, but at some points there were a lot of shortcomings that they weren't fixing as fast. So other companies came, Next.js came, Remix is a framework you might have heard of, Astro is another one, that tried to build on top of React, but fix some inconsistencies in there. They said React is a great framework, does a bunch of great things, but something can be built on top of React. That is what Next.js is. Next.js, even though it is an independent framework maintained by a different company, it still heavily relies on React. So you need to know React before you move on to Next.js. Next.js was a framework that was introduced because of some minor inconveniences in React, fairly minor inconveniences, but these conveniences become major as your project grows. So React had some inconsistencies. There were a lot of tries to fix those inconsistencies, but eventually Next.js came and all in one fixed all of those inconsistencies. And that's why people today prefer Next.js. Every other project that you will see, most projects would either be Remix or Next.js. Why? Because it solves a bunch of problems in React. React में कुछ problems हैं. For example, in a React project, you have to maintain a separate backend for your API routes. React isn't a backend framework. Next.js is a front end and a backend framework. In Next.js, you can not just create front ends, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, websites. You can also create backends. You can also connect to your database. So a lot of things that React does not do. If you are building a React application, what did you do? When we were creating the Finder application, we had a separate folder called Brainly Frontend, where we wrote all of our React code. We had a separate folder called Brainly Backend, where we wrote all of our backend code. This code was usually in Node.js, used Express as the HTTP framework. This was in Next.js, and this was in React, and pretty much fairly simple React code we wrote over here. From time to time, in our React components, we would do a axios.get, axios.post, or a fetch request to send a request to the backend, but they were separate folders. In case of Next.js, in a single repository, you can write your front end and your backend code. If you create a Next.js application, you could have localhost :3000 return some HTML. But you could also have localhost :3000/API/v1/user return some JSON, standard backend JSON, user details, things like these. So in a single place, you have front end and backend. Does Next.js use Express? No, it's an implementation of their own for both returning HTML from a backend, JavaScript from a backend, and JSON from a backend. That is one of the benefits. Second is React does not provide you out of the box routing. If you remember the routing class, we wrote code that looked like this. Routes, route path equal to / component equal to some, landing component, and route path equal to, whatever profile that would render a profile component, so on and so forth. तो ये जो routes and routing है, they aren't really part of React. In fact, React isn't even a browser framework. React is something else only. React is a framework that does reconciliation really well. React is a framework. Okay, doesn't matter if you want to create a mobile application. Doesn't matter if you want to create a web application. In both of these cases, you will need React. Now, if you want to build it for mobile, then you add React DOM or React Renderer DOM. What is that framework? React Router DOM. I don't think this is. I think this is React DOM. React Router DOM is something else. You have to add a framework. I'll look through what the framework is very quickly, but most probably it's React DOM only. Yeah. You have to add a framework that actually renders HTML, CSS, and JavaScript on web. And if you want to build a mobile application, you have to add React Native as a framework. Let's quickly create a simple React application. Let me show you. Create wait@latest. Let me call it week 18 SSR. SSR stands for server-side rendering. We'll come to what that is. But if I ever create a React project for the web using Vite and look at the package.json, cd week 18 SSR, in the package.json, I will find React as a dependency and React DOM as a dependency. What is the difference between both of these? This is a diffing engine. ये बस देखता है कि अच्छा, if the state has changed, then I need to render something new over here. If the state has changed, I need to remove something from the DOM. It does the differences and tells this library कि यार something has changed. The user has added another to-do. So this guy actually renders the to-do on the screen. React DOM is something that you need with React to be able to create a website. And similarly, React Native is something you need to be able to create a mobile app with React. So React is a diffing engine. React DOM lets you create websites. React Native lets you create mobile applications. These have the logic of how to create a button in Android or iOS. And React DOM has the logic of how do you put a div on the screen. So you need two separate things. Does not provide. Okay, this question, well, I went a little out of context here. But React is a framework that does diffing. You need React DOM for the web, React Native for the website. And on top of that, you need React Router DOM for doing routing. Routing का मतलब क्या है? If the user goes to this page, render the landing component. If the user goes to this page, render the profile component, so on and so forth. So you need 3 libraries to be able to build a website with React. In Next.js, it has routing done out of the box. Routing उसमें खुद हो जाती है. You don't need an external library. Is this a big benefit? It doesn't matter. Like, it's not a big benefit. But ठीक है, one call out कि, what is the difference between them is कि React is an independent framework, can be used for this and this. अब अगर आपको web use करना है तो you need React DOM. अगर आपको routing use करनी है then you need React Router DOM also. You need these 3 dependencies to create a full stack project. If you go to one of the projects that we've made, for example, Brainly frontend, the front end of the Brainly application, week 16 Brainly frontend, and look at package.json, you will see we have React as a dependency, React DOM as a dependency. I'm surprised we don't have React Router DOM as a dependency. Seems like we did not do routing over here. Yeah, we probably just had a single page. We did not create a sign up page and a sign in page. Yeah, I just created the dashboard. We had a single page in Brainly frontend, but if we would have had separate pages, sign up ka alag, sign in ka alag, then we would have another dependency here, React Router DOM. We don't need it for Next.js. Here comes the real benefit. ये थोड़े fatty benefits हैं कि चलो ठीक है, it gives you backend. तो क्या होगा? I'll create a separate backend. Even though there are some benefits here, it has extra dependencies, it's fine. This is a very important point. React is not SEO optimized. This is one of the reasons मैं कह रहा था ना कि there were minor inconveniences. A lot of people tried to fix them and then Next.js became the winner. But this is one of the biggest thing that Next.js fixes. React is not SEO optimized. What is SEO? Search engine optimization. Whenever you create a website, your goal is कि Google के top पे, you appear when this is search. And here is search. I want my website to appear over here. That is what most websites strive for. But if you create a raw HTML website, if you create a raw HTML, CSS, JavaScript website, then it will be highly SEO optimized. If you create a React project, it will not be SEO optimized. If you create a Next.js project, it will be SEO optimized. And based on how much effort you are putting in, you can also make it highly SEO optimized. Why is React not SEO optimized? We'll come to. Why is it a bad idea for you to create a React application if you want your website to be listed on Google or Bing? We'll come to. But this is one of the reasons that a lot of companies create their landing pages in either raw HTML, CSS, JS or Next.js and their internal dashboards in React. Because internal dashboard, you don't really want it indexed on Google. It is fine. It is an internal dashboard. But the landing page, your first pitch needs to go to Google. Google needs to see it so that Google can optimize it. So a lot of times for this reason, landing pages are written in raw HTML, CSS, JavaScript or using Next.js. Internal dashboards, what is a good example of this? NeonDB. Neon.tech ka front end would be, the landing page would be highly optimized. This, even if it uses React, it is fine because Google is never going to come here. Google does not want to see yahan kya ho raha hai. Google does not want to index this page /app/projects. Google just wants to index this page. Or Neon company wants that this gets indexed to Google. Google understands that koi Postgres search kare to Neon top pe aaye. So for that, their landing page will be highly optimized or, highly SEO optimized. Their internal dashboards won't. That is another benefit of Next.js. Now, why is this not SEO optimized is a question we'll answer in the next slide. But, for now, it is not SEO optimized. We'll come to why. And finally, the waterfalling problem. This and this are very closely related. The reason for it not being SEO optimized is because of the waterfalling problem that exists in Next.js. So let's understand both of these first. Okay, what are these two reasons? Because these are the biggest reasons you might want to move from React to Next.js. Let's understand. What is SEO optimization? Why does Next.js give it to you? React does not. Very common interview question as well. Okay, what exactly does, oopsie daisy, open chat for everyone, my bad. What does React give you that, Next.js give you that React doesn't? Why do people use Next.js? Biggest reason is SEO optimization. Google, Bing have a bunch of crawlers that hit websites and figure out what the website does. Google ka yahi kaam hai. Initially, when Google was conceived, what were they doing? They were crawling the internet. They were going to one page, there are 10 links, going to the next 10 pages, crawling it and trying to figure out what every page is doing. They have the page rank algorithm, if you might have heard of it. They rank every page. And if a very big page, for example, Mark Zuckerberg's blog mentions 100x devs cohort, then 100x devs cohort will get optimized really up. Uska bhi rank बढ़ जाएगा. So they have an algorithm of the most highly ranked pages. And then whoever is mentioning those highly ranked pages, their rank also keeps on getting increased. ऐसा करके उनका एक algorithm है. But the core of it is they need to crawl websites. What does crawling a website mean? It means they, करते they reached projects.100xdevs.com. Google का crawler reached here. Google का crawler sent a request here. And Google का crawler tried to figure out, what does this website return me? When I go to projects.100xdevs.com, क्या वापस आता है? What is the first thing that comes back? Google का crawler sends a request here and figures out, okay, this is what this website does probably. Let me try to read through it. अच्छा ठीक है, there is, a lot of HTML here. Does it say 100x devs projects? Yes, there is something called, projects. There is something called add a recoil store module. There is some Notion doc, some adding recoil. There is some talk about some blog, so on and so forth. This initial HTML को it tries to inspect and understand what exactly is projects.100xdevs.com serving. If someone goes to Google and searches for recoil, now they might end up on this page because Google understands कि हाँ, the request that I sent, that my bot sent over here, there was some mention of recoil over here. There was some mention of SQL databases over here. So that is how Google figures out, or Bing figures out, what are various websites all over the world doing. They keep crawling 24/7. It ranks pages on Google based on the HTML it gets back. This is key over here. This is the reason why React is bad, Next.js is good. Because Google ranks based on the HTML it gets back, not the JavaScript it gets back. I'll come to what that means. The crawlers don't usually run your JavaScript and render your page to see the final output. So, दुनिया भर में Google is running a bunch of these crawlers that are hitting app.100xsteps.com, projects.100xsteps.com. That request is reaching our server and we are returning them something. Based on that, they have to figure out what does this website do. Try visiting a React website. I don't know if this will be up. Of course, this is not up, but let's quickly create I already created one, this React website. Let me open it in Visual Studio Code and show you guys कि क्या कमी है React में exactly. This is a simple React application for now. And let me add some changes here. Let me say this is 100x devs project website. So 100x devs projects. And let me convert this to a div. This website contains courses for React, Recoil, and Redux. Let me do an npm install, followed by an npm run dev. This is my React project. Eventually, I will host this on the internet. This website will be hosted on app.100xsteps.com, courses.100xsteps.com. It clearly says 100x devs projects. This website contains courses for React, Recoil, and Redux. Do you think when the Google crawler hits over here, will it understand that this website is for React, Recoil, and Redux? Will it rank me on the Recoil keyword? What do you think happens? Let's do a poll. Will the ranking happen? If Google crawler comes to my website, will it say कि हाँ 100x devs website? Will it happen or not? Will it be able to crawl, yes or not? Will it be able to understand that this website is about courses, yes or no? Okay. 37% said, 40% said yes, 60% said no. 60% already understand. 40%, let me refresh this page. Google का crawler क्या करेगा? It will hit my website and get back this first response. Everything else may or may not come. We'll come to what this everything else is and when this comes. But the first request, if you look at, is there any mention of recoil, redux over here? इस HTML में कहीं पे भी recoil, redux कुछ लिखा है? What did the slide say? The slide said it ranks Google based on the HTML it gets back. Initial HTML ये आया एकदम खाली. Where does this HTML come from? If you remember, it is this index.html that is present over here. How does React work? React gives you a very empty index.html file and a JavaScript file that actually renders things inside. इसके अंदर जो भी लिखा है, now it says 100x devs projects. If I open HTML, body, div, it says 100x devs projects. This website contains courses for React, Recoil, and Redux. But the initial HTML में यहाँ पे कुछ नहीं लिखा है. Div ID root is empty. It is only that when the initial HTML comes, it has a script tag to /source/main.tsx. That JavaScript file comes, renders over here. ये JavaScript actually run होती है. And then जाके 100x devs project gets injected over here. Initial HTML completely empty. After the JavaScript runs, then the HTML contains 100x devs projects. This website contains courses for React. So what happens is Google ka crawler, even though now it does run JavaScript, it still is, it's very expensive to run all of this JavaScript for a crawler. It's so easy for the crawler to get the HTML and figure out क्या हो रहा है यहाँ. It's very hard for it to get the HTML, then get the JavaScript file, then run the JavaScript on the browser somewhere. and then figure out कि oh, this website is for React, Recoil and Redux. When you're creating a website, you have to optimize for the crawler also. Your crawler is only going to get back this. So somehow I need to put courses for React, Recoil, Redux over here. मुझे यहाँ पे वो चीज लिखनी है. Only if the first request responds with this, does Google understand that this website is for Recoil and Redux के courses. Do we understand this? What is the problem? The problem is that if you ever try visiting a React website, the very first response that you get back has an empty div. It has some JavaScript that eventually will run and eventually inject something here. But a Google bot is not running this JavaScript. It may or may not run it. But assume the worst and think कि वो run नहीं करेगा. It needs to figure out based on this कि what does this website do, and this gives you nothing. It's not telling you at all कि website क्या कर रही है. Even for a complex application like projects.100steps.com, if it was written in React, you would get back just this empty div, which would eventually populate with the JavaScript. That is the biggest downside of React. That is why it is not SEO optimized. There were a few tools that came that would figure out ki, acha, is this request coming from a bot? And then it would somehow return them the HTML. But eventually just Next.js came, everyone used Next.js. But beach mein, there were some tools that everyone would see. In fact, the first website that I created in React, then I was like, why is it not getting rendered? Or sorry, SEO picked up. And then I realized, ki, acha, this is the reason. Then I was trying to use that other framework. Next.js wasn't a thing back then. This was in 2017. There's this website called AcadCare I created. So I was thinking, why is this website not getting ranked on Google? And I realized that it's because my React application is not returning any content over here. So that is the downside of React. It is not SEO optimized. This is why it is not SEO optimized. The other problem is waterfalling problem, which is basically let's say you create a medium-like application that looks like this. You can come, sign up, and you can see all of your blogs over here. You can create a new blog as well. Let's say you create this website. So what is the request response cycle? Can you guess? सबसे पहले when I go to medium.com, I ask for the HTML. I get back empty HTML and a script tag. I get back empty HTML and a script, not this one, a script tag. The script tag tells the browser, here I need to get this JavaScript file and run it. So I go to the backend, get back a JavaScript file, then I run that JavaScript file. Then something appears on the page. But if it is my blogs, then I need to fetch the blogs from the backend. So the person will see a white screen, or the person will see a bunch of loaders over here, a circular loader or a bunch of skeletons. Then I will hit the backend on the /me endpoint. Give me back my details. Give me back my blogs. And then the server will, let's say, respond back with my blogs. And then, well, actually, blogs se pehle, I will first hit the server. Am I logged in? If I'm not logged in, I should go back to the sign in page. So I will first check, am I logged in? If I am logged in, then I will get back my blogs. And then the blogs render. 4 steps lag gaye. This is what is called waterfalling. What are you doing? Get back the HTML, then get back the JavaScript, then get back the blogs, let's say. Let's say we ignore the third point also. There are 3 round trips you are doing, one after the other. These are not happening parallelly. सबसे पहले ये request जाती है. इस request के response में it is written, I need to get this. Then this request goes out. Then somewhere here it is written, I need to get the blogs. So I do an axios.getBlogs. And then yahan jaake kahin axios.get blogs request will go out. Then I will render 3 sequential requests. Versus if I was using Next.js, pehli request mein I would get back the blogs. How does that happen is a different question. Oh boy. But in the first request I would get back the response. That would make it SEO optimized. That would also avoid 3 round trips to the backend. In a single request, the server will return me back my blogs. Next.js gives you something like this. You go to index.html, you get back all the blogs. And in the HTML itself, ये जो initial HTML थी, इसमें ही you will get back all of your blogs. You don't need to send 3 requests to the backend. So that is the second benefit of using Next.js. How does that happen is a different question, but it does happen. Do we understand waterfalling? Okay, when you go to a React project, this is a fresh React project I created right in front of you. Inside this React project, in my app.tsx component, I put a bunch of details of my website. But no crawler can understand this, because when the crawler goes to my website, the crawler simply sees an empty HTML file. Itko nahi pata ki kya ho raha hai. And if this application had a backend, then I would have had to first get back the HTML, then get back the JavaScript, which will have the Axios request to hit the backend, then hit the backend for all of my blogs, then render them on the screen. 3 separate requests, one after the other, sequential, parallel bhi nahi hai. This is what Next.js lets you avoid. Single first request mein we'll write Next.js code very soon, and you will see the initial HTML has a bunch of blogs in here, blogs details, user details, sab kuch yahin pe hoga. How that happens, we'll see very soon. Let's do a poll. Do we understand this? Do we understand the downsides of React? Very common question of why should you use, Next.js over React? I can almost tell every other company will ask you this. Let's do a poll. I think I'll have to poll it myself. Oh, there we go. Okay, that looks pretty decent. 92% is great. Let's move on then. Next.js ki offerings kya hai bhai? What does it provide you? It provides you the following upsides over React. Number 1, server-side rendering. This is the most important bit. Server-side rendering. What does it mean? What does React do? If this is the React, let's say front-end server. This is our Express backend server. If I go to localhost:3000 or whatever app.100xdevs.com, if this was a React application, it would return me the index.html. Then I would send a request to get back the JavaScript file. That would return me the index.js. Then I would run the JavaScript over here. इसमें कहीं ना कहीं there will be logic to hit the backend. So I will hit the backend on, let's say the /blogs endpoint. This will return me an array of blogs that I have, which I will render in the browser. What does rendering it mean? Printing it on the screen one after the other. This is called rendering, and more technically this is called client-side rendering. On the browser, on the client, I am rendering this. I am shoving this HTML. I am creating this HTML. React is running over here. It is telling React DOM कि यार 3 to do आ गए हैं. Please put these 3 to dos over here. That is what appears over here. That is what React does. It does what is called client-side rendering. What does Next.js do? It does server-side rendering. So can you guess how this would change if we move from React to Next.js? What will happen? This is what happens in React. And in case of Next.js, you will have your Next.js server. Let's say you have a separate backend. You don't use Next.js ka backend offerings. You have a separate Express backend and you have the client. Now when the client goes to the landing page of, whatever projects or, blogs.100xdevs.com, the Next.js server will talk to the backend. It will get back the blogs for this user or global blogs. It will render the blogs here. What does rendering the blogs mean? It will create the HTML. It will create the HTML that looks like this: div blog1 /div, and then div blog2 /div, so on and so forth. ये HTML यहाँ बना देगा, and this HTML gets returned over here. This fully generated HTML, fully rendered HTML is what comes back in the first request itself. So the pehli request that came over here talked to a backend server, got back the response, and the initial HTML has all of this data over here. That is what is called server-side rendering, because the rendering, the generation of the HTML is happening on the Next.js server. It is not happening on the client like it does in case of a React project. For a React project, rendering happens on the client. For a Next.js project, rendering happens on the server. What was the first offering of Next.js? Server-side rendering. This will make it SEO optimized. अगर पहली रिक्वेस्ट जो जा रही है उसमें सारे ब्लॉग्स आ रहे हैं, if in the initial HTML there are a bunch of blogs that are written over here, then the bot understands that this is a blogging website where blogs have been written about recoil or redux, and then it can optimize it and SEO rank it whatever it wants. What is new over here कि यार our front end का भी server है that is talking to a backend का server. One very big difference in React and in Next.js is कि React में in the end there is a bundle. What is a bundle? HTML, CSS, JS. बस ये 3 फाइल्स बन जाती हैं. If I go to my React project and run npm run build, it will give me a bunch of errors. So let me try that one more time. If I run this, क्या होता है? Dist folder gets an index.html, an index.js, and index.css. These 3 files are created. Now I can literally get rid of everything else. I can delete all of this. I don't need my React project anymore. ये जो dist बना है, this bundle has everything about my website. I just need to serve this bundle. I deleted my complete React project because this dist folder has everything. If I go to the dist folder and run npx serve, which is just a command that will serve all of these files, this index.html, and go here, I see my website. Even though I don't have app.jsx, I don't have index.html, sab chala gaya. Still, the final bundle is all that I need. The final bundle is what is distributed in production. Now I will put this on my EC2 server, on my server that I will buy from AWS, and khatam, my website has been productionized. I have a production running website with just this bundle. That is how React serves the front end. So this doesn't even need to be a server. A lot of times this is CDNs, content delivery networks, because this is just content. Just like images are a content, video is a content. These are just content. These are just files. जब भी कोई request आ रही है, you don't have to run any JavaScript on the server. You have to serve the files, that is all. This is more or less a file server. After you build your React project and productionize it, you will get a bunch of these files. I got a bunch of these files, index.html, CSS and JS. I just need to distribute these files, send these files. I don't need any Node.js server running over here that is running some logic whenever a request comes. That is what happens in React. That is not what happens in Next.js. In Next.js, there is actually a server running over here. Express server, some other server, doesn't matter. There is an HTTP server running over here. Whenever a request comes, there is some logic in here that actually runs, some JavaScript over here that actually runs, hits the backend server, gets the data, renders the data, and returns it to the front end. This is in stark difference with what happens in React. React, when you build it in production, spits out an HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Just serve the HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Simple as that. That is why it's very expensive to serve React projects. One of the reasons you might want to use a React project is very cheap to run them in production. They can be scaled via CDNs. That does not happen in Next.js. There are nuances to this statement. Next.js, you can do this. But for most cases, Next.js, you actually need a server running somewhere. and whenever a request comes, there is someone listening on a port. There is a app.listen 3000 that is happening. Someone listening to all the requests here, someone running some JavaScript here, hitting a backend, getting a response, generating the HTML, returning it back. So that is what server-side rendering involves. It involves creating a fresh server. There is always a server running that is serving the HTML. It is not a simple static file that you have to give away. It is a dynamic file that is generated every time a request comes. API routes, as I said, हमने यहाँ पे architecture complicated use किया है, but you can actually have front end, back end in the same Next.js application. Your Next.js application can actually talk to databases. And even if you want to create backend routes, you can create them directly. If you want to create a /blogs route, it can be directly done on a Next.js server, on Next.js code base. Your Next.js code base can talk to a database, get back the data from there. So you don't have to worry about, creating a separate backend, even though sometimes you do create one, sometimes you don't create one. Third is file-based routing. We'll come to what that means, but long story short, you don't need another dependency, React router DOM. Uske bina kaam chal jata hai. Number 4, bundle size optimization and static site generation. These are important. Bundle size optimization, as the name suggests, it optimizes your final bundle, makes it really small. In case of JavaScript, in case of React, everyone is getting the same bundle. What if I don't need some parts of this JavaScript file? I still get it. But there are ways to lazily load. There are ways to optimize this in React also. But in case of Next.js, by default, the response that you get is very optimized. You don't need everything from the server. You don't get everything from the server. And lastly, it's maintained by the Vercel. They're doing good work on it, yada, yada, yada. Downsides, it can't be distributed via a CDN. Always needs a server running that does server-side rendering, and hence it is expensive. As I said, there's nuance to this statement. There are some parts of Next.js that you can serve via CDNs, but let's not go there. And very opinionated. This is one downside. Once you create a Next.js code base, very hard to move off of Next.js to a different framework. React mein ho to it's not too difficult to move to a Next.js framework. If you're in Next.js, it's a lot of hard to move back to React. ठीक है. Now we're going to start writing some code. One last poll. Did we understand everything? Specifically, did we understand ये जो architecture है कि when you send a request, some JavaScript is running over here, hitting the database or hitting another backend, getting your data, rendering the data, and returning it to the front end. Very well, fully finished page comes back to you. Do we understand this? Let's do a poll. ठीक है जी, 90% is decent. So let's quickly bootstrap it and see it in action then. Let's start a fresh Next.js application. Just like Vite lets you bootstrap a React application. Create Next app is a CLI that lets you generate a fresh Next.js application. अब उसके अंदर क्या क्या होता है we will see. But let's quickly bootstrap a Next.js application. If this feels overwhelming, you can go to Replit, select Next.js, you'll see the same thing. Or preferably run it locally. So let me run npx create next app at the rate of latest. What does this mean? Run this executable create next application ka latest version. What this will do is this will create all the folders that I need for a fresh Next.js application, and empty fresh Next.js application. Okay to proceed? Yes. What is the project name? Week 18 next. Would you like to use TypeScript? Yes. Would you like to use ESLint? Yes or no, doesn't matter. Select either one of these. What is ESLint? We'll come to. Do you want to use Tailwind? Again, yes or no? Feel free to decide. I'm going with yes. So we have Tailwind set up. I don't have to reset it up. Would you like your source code to be inside a source directory? Doesn't matter. Yes or no, either is fine. If you select this, there will be a source folder जिसके अंदर source code होगा. If you don't select it, there won't be a source folder. Top level folder पे सब कुछ होगा. Either is fine. Would you like to use the app router? Recommended. This is an important thing. Recently, like, I don't know, 2 years, 1 year ago, there was this thing called the app router that was introduced. Router. What did we say? Next.js has routing itself. What was one of the benefits? File-based routing. Something that it does automatically. इसको करने का तरीका थोड़ा different होता था पहले. It was slightly different how you would do routing before. It is slightly different right now. So it is asking you, do you want to use the old version or do you want to use the new version? App router is the new version. Pages router करके एक चीज थी, that was the old version. What will we use? We'll use the new one. Everyone uses this now. We will select the app router. Would you like to use Turbo Pack for next dev? This is probably what is building the project. We will select no for now. Would you like to use import aliases, by which it means, would you want to do import something from // components? या फिर आपको ऐसे import aliases बना देने हैं कि when you are importing something, you can import it directly from @ components. Either is fine. I've selected no. And it has bootstrapped a project for me. Now it is a TypeScript project. It uses Tailwind. It uses the app router. These are the important things. A TypeScript project, not a JavaScript project, uses Tailwind, uses the app router. Wait for it to finish, then we'll proceed. What is Turbo Pack? I would assume ये बीट वालों का या किसी का वो होगा bundler. Near bundle optimized for TypeScript and Rust. Yep. We'll read through it. Week 18 next को हम Visual Studio Code में खोल लेंगे. I have my empty fresh Next.js project running. If I run npm run dev, it starts to run my website on localhost :3000. If I go here, I see a fresh bootstrapped page that looks like this. Next.js, get started by editing this, save to see your changes instantly, so on and so forth. Okay? That is how you start a fresh Next.js project locally. How do you convert this into a fully fledged website? Different question. This is the starting point. Let's look at the folder structure and try to understand what exactly is happening over here. This is the important bits of the folder structure. There is a folder called app where we'll be writing most of the code. We'll spend 99% of our time here. There is a next config.js. There is a tailwind config.ts. This will have your tailwind configuration. If you want to add custom colors, if you want to change the font size, so on and so forth, you will go here. We have done this in tailwind. This will have a bunch of Next.js configuration that you have to change from time to time. When we reach monorepos, we'll be touching this file as well. Abhi ke liye, we'll be spending most of our time over here in the app folder. Contains all of your code, components, layouts, routes, and APIs. What are components? What are layouts? What are routes? What are APIs? We'll come to very soon. But most of the code is written over here. Let's look at an open source project which is written in, Next.js. This one uses a monorepo, but if you go to this apps/web folder, you will see यहाँ पे भी there is a top level app folder. There is a next.config.js. There is a tailwind.config.ts. So they also have a Next.js application only. It uses the app router that I'm talking about. यहाँ पे भी app folder है. We also have an app folder. Inside the app folder, we have a page.tsx. Inside their app folder, they don't have a page.tsx. Probably have it somewhere. Very interesting. Where is their root page? I am interested to know. We'll see. There should have been a page.tsx. There isn't. So, one of you figure out where it is. I thought there'd be like a, what do you call it? A sub route over here. वो भी मुझे नहीं दिख रहा है. So where is their landing page? We'll try to see. ठीक है? This is also Next.js application. One of you who's free, figure out where is their landing page.tsx. I don't know. I can't find it. For us, app folder में, there are a few files. Globals.css. Name suggests it has it has all of your CSS. Technically, this is the important bit, the tailwind directives that you need to when you're starting a tailwind project. Layout.tsx. We'll come to what this is. Don't worry about it. Page.tsx. This is the most, I wouldn't say important, but like ये है सबसे entry point of your application. What did our application say? Our application said, get started by editing app/page.tsx. If I go over here, this page.tsx has get started by editing app/page.tsx. Let me get rid of this. Save it. यहाँ से चला गया. Let me get rid of some more things. It went away from here. So somehow this page.tsx is what gets rendered on the slash route, on the landing route. Slash पे जाओ या if it is empty, this page.tsx का जो export है, whatever this guy is exporting is what is getting rendered. Let me delete the whole thing. And create a div that says hi there. Then यहाँ पे I see hi there as well. So this page.tsx in the app folder, which exports a component, export default function home, whatever I'm writing in here somehow is getting rendered on the slash endpoint. If I go to slash users, then it says 404 page not found. But if I create a folder over here called users, what did I do? Created a folder here called users, inside which I have page.tsx. अब यहां से if I export something similar, let me copy this code from the root page.tsx, copy it over to users/page.tsx and write users page. Then that is what renders on the slash users route. What does that tell you? Next.js has file-based routing. यही तो पढ़ा था initially. What did we read in the very first slide? The very first slide said, or the second one maybe, I don't know. Benefits of Next.js कहाँ थे? ये रहा. File-based routing. What does Next.js offer? It offers file-based routing. What does file-based routing mean? It means that if you have to render a page on slash users, create a folder here called slash users. उसके अंदर create a page.tsx कि यहाँ पे कौन सा पेज रेंडर होना चाहिए. Whatever you export from there, whatever component gets exported from there is what will render on the slash users endpoint. That is what file-based routing means. I did not have to create, a routing framework like this or use a routing framework जहाँ पे मुझे routes and then route path equal to slash users component equal to something. I did not have to do any of this. It has file-based routing कि जो routes चाहिए उनकी file बना दो. If you need a route at slash users, create a folder called slash users. Inside that add a page.tsx file. उसमें जो कोड भी लिखोगे, that is what will render over here. Is this good? I don't know. It just works. I get कि it is very opinionated. Opinionated का मतलब कि उन्होंने आप पे थोप दिया कि ऐसे ही करनी पड़ेगी routing. You have to do routing via file-based routing. And this is one of the reasons it's very hard to move off of Next.js because your code base is so ingrained in various folders. You can't go back to React from there. But this is how it happens over here. This is what was happening in dub.sh. What I was surprised over here was that I did not see any root page.tsx. So I was trying to find that inka landing page jo hai, if you go to dub.sh, they have a landing page. If I remove this, on the slash endpoint, this is getting rendered. So what I was trying to see was that inke code base mein ye kahan hai. So the way I would do it is I would search through their code base for this. तो यहाँ पे है वो app onboarding, no, product content, dub links. Dub is now SOC 2 compliant. Let's try this. Now SOC. Okay, I'm going on a tangent here. Someone try and figure out कि ये landing page का code कहाँ पे है, because I would have hoped it was in a page.tsx file over here. But it's not here, but it's somewhere here only. So figure out what that is. Meanwhile, I will move on. So they probably have separate files. Or it might happen that, that might be it. Landing, वही चीज़ जो मैंने बोली थी. Landing page might be separate, but app.dub.co might be separate. There you go. So dub.co is a separate framework, a separate website. App.dub.co is a separate website. App.dub.co का code base might be over here. So if I go to app.dub.co, there's probably auth/login/page.tsx. अब इसका यहाँ पे तो फोल्डर में auth/login/page.tsx है. यहाँ पे auth/login तो नहीं है, तो why is /login पे यहाँ पे why is this page.tsx rendering is a different question, we'll come to very soon. बट लग तो रहा है कि ऐसा ये साइन इन टू योर डब अकाउंट, साइन इन टू योर डब अकाउंट, तो इसके लैंडिंग पे मोस्टली कुछ नहीं होगा. देयर यू गो, इसका लैंडिंग redirects you to /login, which is why they did not have a root page.tsx. Cool. And they have a separate admin.dub.sh also. Cool है. Coming back to our discussion, rolling back the, going back beginner friendly. Next.js has file-based routing. Let's start to create a project only very soon. देखते हैं project बनता कैसे. Let's start to see some server-side rendering in action. I have created a simple Next.js application. If I run npm run dev here, I can go to a landing page. Landing page पे I see hi there. I can go to /users. I see a users page. If I go to any other route, it says 404 not found. अगर मुझे डालना है ये route तो मुझे क्या करना होगा? I will just have to add that folder over here. I can also create recursive folders. For example, I can say /users/admin /page.tsx. And यहाँ पे I can say export default function admin return admin page. And now if I go to /admin, sorry, /users/admin, I see the admin page. So I can have, route after route after route. Simple है ये, सबको समझ आ गया? Do we understand file-based routing for very simple websites? Of course, this gets very complex very soon. If you look at their folder structure, it's very weird. They have, something called app/web. If you look at their app folder, it has some folders which are starting with square braces. If you remember a while back, we saw some folders that were starting with wale braces. So these are like some complicated things that we'll come to. But simple folders हमें समझ आ रहे हैं कि embed/page.inline/page.tsx में जो भी लिखा होगा, that is what will get rendered on app.dub.sh/embed/inline. Similarly, for our code base, whatever is written on /users/admin/page.tsx, this is what will get rendered on /users/admin. जो यहाँ पे route पे आप जा रहे हो, उसका corresponding folder वो ढूंढेगा कि is there something in /users/admin, and if there is a page.tsx here, whatever is written inside, whatever this exports by default, renders over here. Now I can make it more complicated, add, whatever, and h1 over here. Big pay, whatever, you get the idea. Can we do a poll? Why is h1 so bad? Class name equal to text-xl. Do we understand this? Here we go. Okay, समझ आ गया. Simple था. Cool. Seems like you guys already know Next.js or you guys are really fast. One of the two, because last cohort wasn't this fast in Next.js. ठीक है, तो फिर let's sprint through it, guys. अगर ऐसा है तो फिर जल्दी खत्म करते हैं इसे. File based routing समझ आ गई है. This was routing the way it was done in React. This is how routing is done in Next.js. /signup पे जाओगे तो this will render. Landing page पे जाओगे, this will render. Some assignment, let's skip through it. Prettify the sign in page. ठीक है, करना है कर लो, नहीं करना है मत करो. Let me do it really quickly. Feel free to copy from the slides as well. This is a very pretty sign in page. So let's start to build a very basic website. Let me delete the users folder. Let me add a app/signin/page.tsx. Let me paste everything here. Now this is some HTML that I wrote, which creates a very simple, pretty sign-in page. तो ये सारी HTML जो है, is for rendering a simple, pretty sign-in page. It renders some HTML that says sign-in, and it uses another component called labeled input. Labeled input का मतलब क्या है कि an input which has a label with it. Username is the label. This is the input box. Password is the label. This is the input box. That is what a labeled input is. तो मैंने इसे एक specific component बना दिया, generic component बना दिया, because I know I need to reuse it here and here, right? To avoid code duplication, I created a component called labeled input, जहाँ पे I'm पहले sending label as username, placeholder as this email, then sending label as password, placeholder as this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is what appears over here. Do I see the same thing on localhost colon 3000 / sign in? I do. I see a simple sign in page or sign in card that you can see over here. Cool hai, simple hai. Now comes the complicated bit. You have a sign in page. Let's say you have to add a sign up page. So what will you do? Add a sign up / page.tsx. Copy over everything from here to here. Replace sign in with sign up. Sign in with sign up. And you have a sign up page as well now. Now, if I go to /sign up, I have a sign up page. If I go to /sign in, I have a sign in page. धीरे धीरे website बन रही है. Now comes the more complicated bit. If I go back to the slides, before that, server side rendering, guys. हो गया हमारा काम. Let's create a third page called blogs. Blogs / page.tsx. यहाँ पे let me return a div that says learn recoil redux from the best platform on the world. ठीक है? Simple component I have created. Okay, whenever the user comes to my website /blogs, he should see this. The question is, can the Google crawler also understand it? Let's see. Let's click on inspect. Let's go to the network tab. And let's see, when I refresh, what do I get back in the first request? जो /blogs की पहली request है, उसमें क्या आ रहा है? Is there a div that says learn recoil redux from the best platform in the world? Yes. Does this mean my website is now SEO optimized? Yes. Whenever a Google crawler hits, the first HTML it gets back, उसमें लिखा हुआ है learn recoil redux from the best platform in the world, which means we have an SEO optimized website. All I had to do was move from React to Next.js. So it's as easy as that, basically. There's nothing too complicated here. When you move from React to Next.js, you get this added benefit, or probably, this is the reason you move from React to Next.js. Okay, now, if you go to the sign up page, it says hi from the sign up page in the very first request. So Google can figure out. इसका और benefit क्या है? Waterfalling चली गई. We'll see that very soon. Let me actually show it to you only. Let's say JSON placeholder. Let's say you have a backend for a to-do application. There's this very openly available backend that you can use. यहाँ पे if I go to /todos, it returns me a bunch of random to-dos, almost 100 to-dos over here. ठीक है? Now, let's say this is your Next.js, your Express backend. क्या देखा था हमने थोड़ी देर पहले? कि in case of React, first request goes out, HTML comes back, second request goes out, JavaScript comes back, JavaScript runs, then you hit your backend. Waterfalling problem. But Next.js में what did we say? कि यार when the first request comes, यहीं के यहीं you can send a request to a backend. You can get back the data from the backend. You can render the HTML and return it over here. Let's try that out. Let's go over here. And now I will introduce some things that are going to be a little confusing, but bear with me for 1 second. Let me make this function asynchronous. What have I done? This blogs component. We have never seen this be asynchronous, but you can do it in Next.js. These components can be asynchronous, and at the top of this component, you can write some code that looks like this. Okay? Const blogs equal to await get blogs, where get blogs is a function which does a axios.get. Let me install Axios. And do a import Axios from Axios. And do a axios.get. What was the endpoint? The endpoint was this JSON placeholder.typecode.com/todos. Assume this is my own backend. Okay? For now, assume this is my own backend. const response equal to await this, return response dot data. यहां से डेटा लिया, इस वेरिएबल में आ गया, एंड नाउ लेट मी जस्ट log them as a JSON string for now. I can get more fancy and properly render the to-dos, but let me just dump them for now. The key thing to understand is, have we gotten rid of the waterfalling problem? Am I now doing this? कि यार पहले तो HTML will come which will be empty, then I will send a request to the blogs and get them back and render them over here. Am I doing this? Or am I now doing this? I send a request to the backend talks to my other backend. This is my Next.js server. It talks to my real backend, my Express backend, gets the blogs, renders them here, and returns all of them directly in the first request. Let's see what happens. I call get blogs over here. If this feels jarring, I can also do this directly here. Doesn't have to be in a separate function. I am doing that. You can write that directly over here also. Either is fine. And then I just render all the blogs. If I want to get fancy, I can, map over all the blogs and, render them one by one. But this, for now, I'm just dumping them as a string. Let's see what happens when I go to the /blogs endpoint. Localhost :3000/blogs. I need to start my server. If I go to /blogs now, notice सारे के सारे to-dos render तो हो गए यहाँ. If this feels jarring, so much JSON, let me quickly clean it up. Let me create a component called to-do, which takes two things as an input, a title and a completed field. I_to_do means interface for to-do, which will have a title, which will be a string, and completed, which will be a boolean. And यहाँ पे let me render it in a slightly cleaner fashion. Return div title, and then if it is completed, then render some sort of a check mark or done. Else render not done. Something like this. And let me now, rather than dumping the JSON over here, let me iterate over all the blogs. And render these one by one. Obviously, there will be a problem. This is fine for now. नहीं समझ आया तो मैं समझा दूंगा. This is the React code, nothing related to Next.js. This is something we've done many times, but a lot of people get confused over here. Okay, how do you iterate over an array and render to-dos one after the other? But what this will do is, it will render my to-dos in a slightly cleaner fashion. Okay, this one is not done, this one is not done, this one is not done, this one is done, so on and so forth. Question is there waterfalling happening or not? Let's see. If I click on inspect, go to the network tab, refresh, go to blogs, the first endpoint. Can you see all the divs are coming here? All the to-dos are directly coming in the very first response. That's great. We don't have any waterfalling. I can add waterfalling also. Like, this really depends on the application developer. अगर मैं ये कर देता, if rather than doing this, this is one way to do it. This is server side rendered. आपका blog वहां से बन के आप वापस आएगा. And you have all of your blogs over here. That is great. Same happens on projects.handexapps.com. In the first response itself, you get all of these tracks. You don't waterfall. I will get the front end. Then I will hit the back end, get all the tracks. Then I will render all the tracks. We don't do client-side rendering here. And similarly, we are not doing client-side rendering here. We are doing server-side rendering. We are skipping a few backend requests from the front end. The backend requests are still happening, but they are happening directly from the Next.js server. It can either talk to the database also, get data from there, or it can talk to a different backend, get the data from here, return you the completely filled data. That's what will happen if you are using this syntax. Now I know this became a little complicated, so let me push this up first. Let me push this so you can run it locally on your side. Let me recap it also, then I will proceed. Week 18, next. So this is the link in case you want to try it out locally. Let me put it in chat. And what I was about to say was that now we'll get into some more complicated territory. Before that, let's go to the slides and see where we are at. Abhi ke liye, we have reached this point where we were able to understand server-side rendering. We saw it in action. We saw it in action for simple components also. Here is a much simpler sign-up page. And we saw that the initial request mein sign-up was coming back in the HTML itself. We saw it for sign-in page. We saw it for a slightly more complicated blogs page as well. Here, yahan pe bhi, the default component that I am rendering, it is able to hit the backend, get the data from there, render the data, and return it to the front end. The initial request itself, जो HTML वाली request थी, that has all the to-dos in there, which is great for SEO. Google can understand these are the whatever. This is a bad example. To-dos are very user specific. You don't want Google to ever know कि मेरे to-dos क्या है. Google cannot log in as Harkirat and see their to-dos. But if this was a website like this one, then this is great for SEO. If Google understands that Node.js runtime is something being taught here, it will rank it on Google, which is great for me. ठीक है जी? Great. Now let's come into some slightly more complicated territory. Layouts. Let's do a poll first. Do we understand everything? This one will be slightly complicated. Layouts are a little hard for people to digest initially, but I don't know. The audience seems very smart today, so let me launch the poll myself. यहाँ पे थोड़ा ड्रॉप ऑफ हो गया. Not too bad actually. 85%. 5% का ड्रॉप ऑफ है. We'll understand very quickly Q&A में try to answer a few questions for like 2 minutes, then I'll proceed. What is server and client in Next.js? What if we have 2 files in the blogs folder? 2 files in the blogs folder. Second file will get ignored, right? If you have 2 files here, second file में जो भी लिख लो doesn't matter. Page.tsx में जो लिखा हुआ है, that is what matters. Whatever else you write here is, will be ignored. What is server and client in Next.js? Yes, when I am running npm run dev, I have some server running over here on localhost :3000, right? It's like an express server. Only this server returns you HTML. That is what the Next.js server is. And what is the client in this case? It's my browser. My browser is the client. This process that is running on my server or on my Mac machine is the server. That is the server and the client over here. Look at Q&A for another 1.5 minutes. It's a stupid question, but if I build React serves an HTML file, does that file contain everything? And will that help in SEO? If I build React, so did you see the HTML file that our React project created? It was completely empty. This was the index.html file that was created by React. It has nothing. It has a reference to a JavaScript file. It doesn't have the contents of the JavaScript file. It has this. Google पे बस यही पहुंच रहा है. This is what is reaching Google. Google is not hitting your JavaScript file, getting that and figuring out कि अच्छा this is a project website. No. Google is just getting back this much. So the HTML is really small. The JavaScript is where the action is here. And that Google, it does get, ऐसा नहीं कि they, of course they do things better now. But long story short, it's best अगर पहले HTML में ही सारा data आ जाए. Where and how we write backends in Next.js? We'll write it very soon, don't worry. If the home page contains links to various other pages in the website, will Next.js get those pages as well? If the home page contains links to various other pages, if the home page contains links to, that's a great question. Your question is, okay, if the home page has links to all of these pages, will Next.js get it? Yes and no. It depends on how you tell Next.js to prefetch. So what we have done is, if you ever go here to any track, you will notice going to the next page, well, it was not as snappy as I was hoping for, but it's snappier than how it used to be. Initially, we did not do this. Okay, if there is a link over here to the next page, we did not fetch that next page. What did that do? Okay, when I clicked on next, it hit the backend, got this page, returned it to the front end, and then we saw it over here. But slowly, we realized that this needs to be very snappy. When the user comes to this page and clicks on next page should automatically be here. It should be prefetched. So you can set it up in Next.js. I think by default, if you ever have a link to another page, Next.js will prefetch that page. Let's try it out. If I refresh this, click on inspect, go to the network tab, and click on previous. Ownership and authorities. देखो, ownership and authorities आ गया यहाँ पे. There you go. I am on the 4th page, but it fetched the 5th page also. It fetched the 3rd page also. If I go to the 3rd page, it will fetch the 3rd page. It will also fetch the 2nd page. If I go to the 1st page, it fetches आगे पीछे के दोनों. So if you're using the Next.js link tag basically, then by default it will start to prefetch pages because it's snappier. If there's a button, the user should see it immediately, right? If they click on it. So it does prefetch pages. All right. 2 more questions, then I'll proceed. What is a hydration error? We'll come to very soon when we reach server and client components. Is there no way to doing SSR in React? Not that I know of. Well, there is. You can use a library called React Renderer Server. Basically, one common use case of this is that you might have your code base in React. But you might want to send emails to users. Email भेजते हैं लोगों को. You might receive promotional emails from time to time. And these promotional emails are very rich. They have, HTML in here. Okay, whatever. Book your next trip with us. ये जो promotional emails होते हैं, they have a lot of HTML here. Now, you can't send React on email. If this is my email inbox, you can't send React code in here. You can, but it might get blocked. It might, actually you can't even send JavaScript. Yeah, you can't send JavaScript by email. Whenever if you are a company today, for example, cal.com, and someone has a meeting scheduled, you can email them text, okay, hi, you have a meeting in 2 minutes. You can send them HTML also, okay, HTML, H1, you have a meeting in, and then whatever, bold, 2 minutes, /bold, /H1. That's how emails become very rich. By rich I mean अच्छे दिखते हैं वो. Now you can't send JavaScript via email. You can, but Gmail of course won't render it. That would be extremely insecure. If I send an email which has a script tag that I don't know, starts to read the page, does a document.get element by ID, other emails, starts to read the other emails in my inbox, const, whatever, s equal to this, not value. And then I can send the person's email to myself, post / hack, whatever, their email. So whenever you send emails to someone, you can send them HTML, that is fine. Emails allow that. If you send JavaScript, it will be ignored. So you can't use React to send emails, which is why in some cases you can do server-side rendering of React. Cal.com does that. Let me show you if I can find it in a minute. Apps, packages, email, there you go. Emails, source, render email.ts. तो यहाँ पे if you see they use something called React DOM server, React DOM on the server, which can render a component. If you ever want to render a component on the server and directly serve it from, let's say React, you can do it by using React DOM server. When do you do it? When you're sending out emails. जब आप email भेजते हो, you can't send them JavaScript and hope that JavaScript runs in the email and then it finally renders. You have to render it on the server and return it. So if your templates are written in React, what are templates? Your email templates. You will have various templates, right? You have a meeting scheduled in 5 minutes. इसका एक template बना हुआ है. You have scheduled a big meeting with XYZ. इसका एक template बना हुआ है. So you have these templates and they are written in React. You have to render them on the server and return the HTML. So you can do it. You don't do it usually. Or, very specific use case where you have to do it. All right. Quite a tangent. Coming back on track. For people who did not understand, let me recap really quickly, then we'll proceed. We initialized a Next.js project. I did something very complicated here. So let me show you one more thing and then we'll proceed to layouts. How would you do, if this was a React project, आप कैसे blogs को लाते? What have you done? You would have done this, right? Use effect. यहाँ पे you would have done axios.get/blogs. And then, whatever, set blogs to whatever blogs were returned from here. Something like this, and render the blogs over here. यही करते. This you can do in Next.js. It requires something extra. Client components, will come to them. But this will take away the benefits of server-side rendering. Use effect कभी server पे run नहीं होता है. Use effect runs on the client. So if you start to write code like this, then don't expect to see any server-side rendering benefits. This empty div will render on the backend. This will come to the front end. On the front end, this use effect will run. On the front end, you will send a request. Proper waterfalling will happen. So if you write code like this, like you've been writing it in React, then you will not get the benefits of server-side rendering. This will render on the client, which is why this needs to be a client component. We'll come to what a client component is very soon. But if you are using a use effect, अगर आप ये चीज कर रहे हो, the React way of getting blogs from the backend, then you will not get the benefits of server-side rendering. This code, even though it works, ये चल जाएगा. You will get an empty set of blogs from the HTML, and slowly on the front end, you will start to fetch the blogs and actually fill them. ठीक है? Just one extra thing I wanted to show. If you don't understand right now, that's fine. We'll come to it eventually. But how you write your code also dictates whether or not you're getting the power of server-side rendering. If you write it the other way, तो आपको server-side rendering के कोई benefits नहीं मिलेंगे. If you write it this way, then you get the benefits of server-side rendering. ठीक है? Cool. One more jargon to discuss, layouts. इसके बाद क्या है देख लें एक बार. Yeah, there's like a lot to do. Let's do layouts today, then let's do Q&A. ठीक है? खत्म कर दूंगा उसके बाद. One last thing पढ़ लेते हैं, layouts. You'll notice a file in your app folder called layouts.tsx. Let's see. I do notice a file in my app folder. I added all of these, but I did not add page.tsx. It was there by default. I changed it. I made it empty, but it was there by default. Similarly, layout.tsx was here by default. What does this do? What could a layout even mean? A layout. We'll see. Gets a few fonts. What does this do? Gets one local font from somewhere in Next.js, gets another font, exports the metadata. आपकी application का title क्या है, description क्या है. If you have heard of meta tags in HTML, this is what will appear over there. Whatever I write over here, let's say to do application, is what will appear, in the title over here. To do application. So that is what this metadata section is for. इसको ignore करो पूरा. This is simple enough. Get a font. This is the font weight I want to use. This is the font that I want to get. This is the type of that font, the variant of the font that I want to get. This is the metadata. What should be the title of the page? What should be the description of the page? This is slightly complicated. It looks like any other component. Export default function root layout. दो पार्ट है, root and layout. Root का मतलब क्या है? It's present in the root folder. It's present in the top level app folder. We will eventually add layouts here also. in subfolders. For now, this is the root layout. And notice it gets children as an input. Do we remember children? इससे पहले we have to recap what exactly children are in React. Do we remember this? If this is my home component, simple है, खाली है, hi there लिखा है. Hi there is what appears over here. If I create another component called button, and I say, yeah, it takes children as an input. And let's say here I return a button that renders children. So now, if I create a button component, if I use the button component here, whatever I pass inside, let's say, sign up and sign in, whatever I pass inside comes in this children prop. ये चीज याद है? We have discussed this in React. Whatever you pass here inside the component, वो automatically children में आ जाता है. You can also do this, children equal to sign up, ये भी कर सकते हो, but this is much cleaner, right? जैसे हम बटन के अंदर कुछ लिखते हैं, वैसे ही inside में बटन component है written this. So that is the significance of the children prop generally. Let's see it. There is a sign up button, there is a sign up button. दोनों बन गए. Do we understand this? Hopefully we do. We have done this in React. नहीं समझ आया? Go back to the React classes. There is a section on children. Now what layout.tsx is doing? Layout.tsx क्या कह रहा है? कि यार एक component define कर दो. Just like I defined a button component over here. It is saying define a component that wraps all the children. जो भी pages इसके बाद आएंगे, be it this root page or blogs page or sign in page, all of these pages को wrap कर दो एक layout में, wrap them in a layout. तो the root layout, this layout.tsx, it says कि यार I'm giving you the children, eventually बच्चे render होने हैं, eventually page render होगा. बट अगर आपको बच्चे को रैप करना है ना किसी चीज में, इफ यू वांट टू रैप द चाइल्ड इनसाइड अ कंपोनेंट, डू इट ओवर हियर. एंड दैट इज व्हाट वी हैव डन ओवर हियर. कि यार लेट्स रैप ऑल ऑफ आवर चिल्ड्रन इनसाइड एन HTML टैग, इनसाइड अ बॉडी टैग वेयर दीज फॉन्ट्स आर प्रेजेंट. लेट मी, वन कॉमन यूज केस क्या होता है हर वेबसाइट का? इफ यू गो टू एनी वेबसाइट, व्हाट डू यू सी? यू सी अ nav bar at the top. This nav bar is present on all the pages. If there are 100 pages, 100 के 100 में this nav bar would be there. So what if I add a nav bar here? Class name equal to border dash b, some border at the bottom, padding dash 4, and यहाँ पे I write, whatever, Quizio, which is the name of my website, let's say. I have created a simple nav bar that will now appear on all of my pages. What is this doing? It is wrapping, यार ये जो children हैं तो इसके बाद render होंगे ही. Whatever are the upcoming pages, if I go to the landing page, ये तो render होगा ही, but now this will be wrapped inside this, and यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? HTML, body, nav bar, then the final thing is getting rendered. Let's see interaction. एक top bar आ गई, यहाँ पे आ गई. If I go to /sign up, यहाँ पे भी top bar है. If I go to /sign in, यहाँ पे भी top bar है. So what did I do? In the layout, in the root layout, सबसे ऊपर जो layout है, उसमें I added this code. Now this code is slightly hard to read कि हाँ हो क्या रहा है. What is happening is, if I open this on the left and open this on the right, what I have done is कि यार मेरा जो the final page that gets rendered, the final page that gets rendered is this. I have said wrap it around this HTML tag, this body tag, and this div which is our nav bar. क्या लिखा है मैंने? कि यार जो भी final child होगा, whatever will be the final page, please wrap it around these three things so that my final page has an HTML tag at the top, has a body tag over here, and has a div which is a nav bar, which is this div right here. And उसके बाद actual content of the page would come. That is what a layout is for. Layout क्या करता है? The thing that is going to appear on multiple pages, the thing that is going to appear on multiple pages is what you put inside your layout. I can remove it also, like you don't need it. इसके बिना भी काम चल जाएगा. Like, let me remove everything. I don't think if I can remove HTML, but let's see. Div. There's div. You can't do this. You have to add HTML at the very least. But I don't have to put the thing that I put, the navbar. But if I want कि हर पेज पे ये चीज दिखे, तो I can add it over here. I don't think I've explained this very well. So let's do a quick poll. Do we understand layouts? I'm not super confident here. As expected. ठीक है जी. Let me. This is very complicated layout. इसको मैं revert कर देता हूँ. Forget this for now. Let's say मैं एक top level folder बनाता हूँ authentication, and I move sign in here. I move sign up also in here. ठीक है? What have I done? Now my application, let me delete, let's have this also. auth/signin/page.tsx है. auth/signup/page.tsx है. If I go here, there is a auth/signin page. There is a auth/signup page. कहाँ गया? ठीक है. Sign in page, sign up page. Now let's say I ask you कि यार इन दोनों pages पे only on these two pages add a top bar, a nav bar. How will you do it? Step 1, you will create a folder, a component called signin.tsx or a navbar.tsx. Let me create a new folder here called components. Let me create a new folder here, call it components. And इसके अंदर I am going to add a navbar.tsx. ये navbar में क्या रेंडर करूंगा मैं? A simple navbar, something that appears on the top. Export function navbar. Div class name equal to some border at the bottom, some padding, and Quizio. ठीक है. I have just defined my navbar over here. Great, Harkirat. अब how can I make it appear here and here? Harkirat, go to app/auth/signin/page.tsx. यहां पे top पे I can add app bar. Import app bar from .. whatever, sorry, navbar. Imported from here, यहां पे ऐड कर दिया. Do the same thing in signup/page.tsx. यहां पे भी at the very top I will render navbar. ठीक है. इसका क्या फायदा हुआ? यहां पे भी navbar आ गई, यहां पे भी navbar आ गई. But wouldn't it be better अगर मैं एक ही जगह ये चीज का पता, if I know all the endpoints that are inside auth, all the pages that are inside auth need to have the navbar, rather than repeating this logic everywhere कि यहां भी डाला and then sign up में भी डाला, rather than repeating this logic, I can create इस folder में a layout.tsx. यार auth के आगे के जितने भी pages हैं, whatever pages exist after auth/auth/signup/auth/signin/auth/profile, in all of those pages, auth layout, let's say, in all of those pages, wrap the final page. This is the final page जो render होगा. पर उसके आसपास I want to add some things. Specifically, I want to add the nav bar over here. If I add this in layout.tsx, I don't have to add this in sign in. I can remove it from here. I don't have to add this in sign up. I can remove it from here. If I go to layout.tsx, you will see, मैंने क्या कहा? मैंने कहा इसके बाद के जो भी चिल्ड्रन है, whatever pages exist afterwards, wrap that page inside this div and first put a nav bar, then the main contents of the page should come. तो अगर मैं /signin पे जाऊंगा, before all of this is rendered, first this div is rendered, then nav bar is rendered, then all of this sign in content gets rendered. So what have I done? I have given a layout to all my authentication pages. क्या ये सारे pages जो हैं, all of them will have a nav bar at the top and then render their actual content. So now if I go here, I still see the nav bar in both the places. If I add a third page over here, profile, page, I wrote only this much. But if I go to /auth/profile, I see a nav bar. Uske niche I see this. Why? Because every page that will exist here will be wrapped inside this layout. This is a sub layout, and jo global wala tha, that was the root layout. This will be applied to every page. This will be applied to every page inside auth. Do we now understand layouts? Let's do a quick poll. %92% is decent, pretty good, and it is 9:36. We'll call it here, guys. So basically, what would be left after the? I mean, there are a lot of things left, but we have been able to complete until slide number 10, layouts and layouts in subroutes. So ये please revise कर लेना before the next class. There's not too much left in full stack development. 4 more classes and then you're good to go. उसके बाद all is extra for at least an entry level job. Everything else is extra. Maybe Docker, maybe monorepos, 2 more things, and deploying a few more things. अब ये बचा है. This I will try to cover in an offline video. So next week we can sprint a bit, understand backend routes in Next.js. How can you add backend routes? How do you add authentication? How do you add cookies? How do you connect it to Prisma? How do you add a database? So on and so forth. So 1 week और लगेगा. I will try to cover all of this in an offline video so that next week we can cover these extra things that I talked about. And then we're good to go. Then we'll build projects. ठीक है? Let me do a Q&A round now. Poll हमारा हो गया था. Recapping everything. Today we learned about Next.js. Understood the prerequisites. Why is it better? We understood about SEO optimization and why it is a good idea for you to use Next.js over React. Then we understood about the waterfalling problem that comes in React projects. Then we understood Next.js offerings. How does it fix the waterfalling problem? How does it do file-based routing? Then we bootstrapped a simple Next.js application by calling npx create next app at the rate of latest. Very simple projects. A few configs you have to set. We use the app router, which is the new one. We did not create a source directory. We used TypeScript. We used Tailwind. Understanding routing in Next.js, we understood that React में तो ऐसे होती थी, but Next.js has file-based routing, which means sign up /page.tsx gets rendered somewhere. Page.csx gets rendered on /. This gets rendered on /sign up. This gets rendered on /sign in, so on and so forth. Then we understood how can you prettify the sign. I mean, we created some HTML, CSS, JavaScript, simple pretty pages we created. Understood some server-side rendering. Finally saw that HTML is coming hydrated from the backend or rendered from the backend. The backend is returning us proper, HTML. SEO is happy. Then we understood layouts, which were a little hard, but layouts basically let you wrap all the child pages inside some logic. For example, here we wrap it inside, it should be in a body tag. It should have these font names or fonts. But after that, we created an app bar that looked something like this. And then we wrapped our application inside that app bar. And by the end of it, what do we have today? We have something like this. An application which has an app bar on all auth endpoints, /auth/signup, /auth/profile पे app bar है. Landing page पे app bar नहीं है because the layout is defined at this level. At the auth level, it is not defined at the root level. तो जो root level का page है उस पे नहीं apply होगा. Auth के अंदर के सारे pages पे apply होगा. That is what we learned. Few more things left before we can say basics are done. Then we'll go from there. With that, I will open Q&A. If you understood everything, feel free to drop off. Sorry, I'll open just chat only. If you understood everything, feel free to drop off. That's all I had for today. I will see you guys next week. And Excited. We are pretty close to finishing everything. Foof. At least in full stack. I mean, there are a lot of advanced things left, honestly, but ठीक है चलो basics are done. Advanced are usually more interesting, more two-way. मजा आता है थोड़ा. All right, we'll start from the top. Notion doc, Notion doc. Why do you need Next.js? Why not write the first page in HTML and others in React? You can, as I said, a lot of companies do that. Landing page in HTML, everything else in React. I prefer that. Why? Very cheap, not expensive to scale. First month, app.100express.com Vercel bill was $720. Then it was around 40,000 rupees a month. I don't know why. Like I was the dumb there. I wasn't really spending time optimizing it. Now it's still $150 a month. If it was a React application, it would be $5 a month. Distributed via CDN. You don't have too much traffic. So, I personally prefer that. But, yeah, in the long run, might make sense to, just completely depend on a framework. So that's why we will do it. But yes, you're not wrong in asking that question. All right. Can we do conditional rendering inside layout.tsx? Can we do conditional rendering? That is a good question. I would assume so. Let's see. Can I say, I don't know, math.random is always a bad idea. But how do you get the current page? How can I do conditional rendering here? What can I put? Math.random is, chalo, okay, let's do this only. Math.random is less than, this might lead to some hydration errors, but let's try it out. Only like randomly I'll render navbar. Let me render it most of the times and not render it sometimes. Let's see, does that work? If I go to localhost 3000, it worked. Let me keep refreshing. At least once in 10 refreshes, I should see the navbar. The hell? Not seeing it at all. Okay, let's make the 0.5. Not seeing it. What is math.random? Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong page. God damn it. /auth/profile. Okay, I see it. I don't see it. I don't see it. I see it. So yeah, you can do conditional rendering. React Native. Oh, wait, guys. Long way to go. Golang hai. Other things are there. Then we'll see. Last week, I showed my project and said, message it took. I know. I have seen you on Twitter. It's a Sunday. HRs don't work on a Sunday. I'll send them your profile tomorrow. Don't worry. I've seen you on Twitter. Don't worry. पहुंच जाएगा कल तक उन पे. You said React is not SEO optimized for. Okay, answer that. How these layouts are implementing only auth, not all. How is rendering internally? How these layouts are implementing in only auth? That's what file is rendering is, right? How is /sign in पे जब मैं जा रहा हूँ, if I go to /auth/sign-in, how is it rendering over here? That's what file-based routing is. Next.js knows कि it figures out your folder structure. Whenever there's a request here, it figures out that there is an auth/sign-in page and renders it. Now, when you go to /auth/sign-in, it first goes कि कोई root layout है. It applies this layout. Then it goes to /auth, कोई layout है, applies this. Then it goes to the sign-in page. So that's how the layouts are one by one getting appended, one on top of the other. As the backend is the same repo, I think it's hard to scale this application. That is a good point. It is hard to scale this application. Like for too many backend requests, we can scale backend hosted separately. You are absolutely right. And yeah, there is no easy way to fix this for Next.js other than you having your whole website highly statically generated. If you do that, then most of your front end will get served via a CDN and backend via a server. So yes, you can actually do this, but it's very hard to do. So you're right in saying that. You're right in this very good first principles thinking. Yes, this will be extremely complicated to scale because front ends and backends should usually scale independently. And yeah, there's a lot of backend load, and you have to scale the front end also, vice versa. So yes, and you've cut both of these questions. So I would assume you don't need them anymore. Let's see. Wow, animations. Oh, there were some creds already. My bad. Oh, you have a V2 already. Okay, very nice. And the question is, how do I query it? I assume I saw somewhere you did do it. Pretty fancy. Let's share content. Can I ask it things already? Oh, there you go. Search and query. No, I can't right now, it seems. But this is very good, like pretty decent. Documents. Oh, there you go. All right, go back. UX is a little weird. I didn't know this would. Welcome to chat mode. Okay, what is this? Nice. Okay. What is the video about? Yeah, man, pretty good. I love it. Can I query on top of documents right now? There might be a way, which is I'm not able to navigate to it honestly. What else did you ask? Converting all the links to documents, searchable vector. Okay, so you haven't done that yet. Yeah, you should do that. User profile for. Yes, this is great. Roast mode would be nice. So you're building it as a productivity app. Pretty cool. You should do it. I type to follow your Twitter. Yeah, it's pretty good, man. I like it. Very moderately polished. Oh, close that. I'm creating a backend where the user should be able to browse through the list of speakers and book a session based on their availability. A sign up endpoint, user email. Yeah. So here is where you should go through my YouTube video that I released around 6 months ago on backend communication. Simplest way to do it is what? When the user signs up, they would give OTP. Whenever they book a meeting, in your route handler itself, you have things like, whatever app dot post slash meeting. Whenever someone is creating a meeting, you can do whatever, await db dot put meeting, then await send email to person one, then send email to person two, then await send WhatsApp message to person one, so on and so forth. Await create Google Calendar invite. So you can do this. Excuse me. Problem is, these are a lot of steps which could take, let's say, 20 seconds. So that leads to problems. What if your server dies in the middle? Your user is waiting for acknowledgement for 20 seconds. So what you can do is, like, a better architecture to do this is, if this is the backend, user sends a request to create an invite. You create the invite in the database, let them know. You only do the first thing. And then you push this onto a queue. And then you have various workers, WhatsApp worker, an email worker, that eventually pulls from this queue and slowly sends out emails and, whatever, WhatsApp messages, invite, Google Calendar invite worker. So anytime a meeting is created, these guys will pick up these messages and one by one do their thing. And if they fail, they will retry, pick up the email again and retry, so on and so forth. So this is a better way to build whatever. These are the challenging bits here. Baki though, you have to figure out Google Calendar API, not too difficult. Someone here was doing something. Sending email, just use, SES from Amazon. WhatsApp API is a little weird, so this might be a little hard, but yeah. Additionally, okay, yeah. So did you have questions like these, or it seems like there are more basic questions? How do you create this, like, email notifications? You don't need separate routes for email notification, calendar invite. You don't have routes. You have a single route. User creates the meeting, and wahan se all of these trickle in. All of these happen one after the other. Mention hello family. Everything is good. Thank you for asking. In Braille backend, did you do something request object in the middleware function to avoid the error? Can you explain? Oh, and we can add global TS to make the change in TS config. I found some things that I couldn't understand. Yes. So you can. What do you want to do? Problem is कि जो request object है इसका ये type है. There is no user ID field over here. So you can't do this. If you do this, TypeScript will begin to complain. TypeScript will say कि यार rec पे तो कोई user ID है ही नहीं. You are trying to set something that doesn't exist. JavaScript won't complain. JavaScript में डाल दो एक object ही तो है जो डालने डाल दो उसके ऊपर. But TypeScript will complain कि यार you are trying to put something that doesn't exist on this type, and that's the problem. So for that, what you can do is you can override types. You can override the express type. You can say, 1 second, RN message might be something important. You declare you override the request object and add something new here. Specifically what we added was the user ID. Here, I know express does not have a user ID field. It's a custom field that we are adding. But TypeScript को हम बता देते हैं कि ये हम add करेंगे. It is an optional field that we are going to add. And then TypeScript knows कि अच्छा rec पे user ID भी exist कर सकता है. That is why it stops to complain over here. That is why we added the global.d.ts, this declaration file. Okay, यहाँ पे I'm going to add some extra TypeScript declarations. Specifically, the one that we've added is this. कि जो request object है, that needs to be overridden that and has this specific field over there, a user ID field in our case. Cool. Not understand layout. What is auth and auth? Yeah, I'll quickly answer them. ये हम करेंगे भी वैसे. Layout. Whenever you're in a folder, auth folder for example, we have created a layout.tsx which says कि यार we are going to wrap आगे के सारे pages inside this. This is going to be आगे के सारे pages. We are going to wrap them inside a div and a nav bar. That is what we have tried to say over here. What does layout say? कि इसके आगे जितने भी pages आ रहे हैं, I am going to wrap them inside this. That is why when you go, oopsie daisy, when you go here to /auth/profile, you first see this navbar, then the actual contents. Because मैंने कहा यहाँ पे कि पहले navbar render करो, then render everything else. That's your first question. Second was, what is this? So this basically is कि जब आपको the problem with that came with this approach was कि all of these pages need to be prefixed with auth /auth/profile /auth/signin. That is a little weird. कि यार मुझे अपना पेज साइन इन पे ही चाहिए. I want my page to be sign in also, sign up only. But I also want only 3 of these to be wrapped in this layout. So what you can do is you can add this inside these goal वाले braces. What that does is कि यार अब वो exist तो /profile पे ही करेगा. The router will ignore that route. कि यार आपने यहाँ auth लिखा है, but it will ignore this route. You don't have to put whatever this over there. But all three of these will still be wrapped in this layout. So if you want to wrap some things in a layout, but not change the folder structure, not change the routes, so you can change this to be, these wale braces, circular brackets. Why? Because this is ignored by Next.js. It will not expect you to put this. It will say कि /profile पे आया, ये आया, इसके अंदर जो page.tsx है, that will what is get rendered over here. But all three of these are now wrapped inside this layout. तो अगर 3 चीजों को एक layout में wrap करना है, but उन तीनों चीजों को same sub route पे नहीं डालना, then you use this. That was your third question. Hydration error basically होता है यार, long story short बता देता हूँ, बाकी we'll cover this. There's a very nice React, God, I can't find it, but like me and Sargam had a very elaborate discussion on this 2 days ago. We also recorded it. I'll see if I can, find it, then I'll post it in the cohort or something. But long story short, server components, when you are trying to access server client, both of them or one of these, whenever you try to access components, like let's try to recreate a hydration error. Let x equal to new date, not get time. If I now go to the profile page, What the hell is this? How did this come here? Oh, this is Zoom. It was probably Zoom only. My bad. Sorry. How do I remove this? Shoot. Okay. What I was saying was, oh wait, it did not come. So it probably happens for a client component, use client. Actually, what should have happened for a server component as well. There you go. If I have a client component, जहां पे I try to do something like printing the date. तो ये जो date print हो रही है, it gets printed first on the server, then on the client again. And these dates are different. यहाँ पे the date was whatever the time was on the server. Then the bundle came to the client. यहाँ पे the date is whatever the time is on the client. So it says hydration failed because the server rendered HTML didn't match the client. इसने कहा server पे तो यार time कुछ और था, client पे time कुछ और है. These client components are also pre-rendered on the server. Even though it's a client component, it is also rendered on the server and then sent down. तो what it is telling you is कि मैंने pre-render किया इसको, वहाँ पे जो time आया था, that was different from the time that is appearing over here, which is why there is a hydration error. It is not able to match both of these. So whenever you have things like these, you should either wrap them inside a use effect so that they are forced to run on the client. If you wrap this inside a use effect, whatever, do a set x over here in a very state variable, then you will not see this error. This error comes right now because yahan pe you try to access something which will be different on the client and the server. Another example might be if you do a math.random over here. There were a few other examples we were discussing the other day. Can't think of any more. But if the server HTML, whenever this is rendered on the server, is different from the client HTML, is when you see these hydration errors. We'll come to this more when we reach, aage ki slides. If you go on through the slides, this last slide and everything after will cover client components and why do hydration errors come. All right, don't have access to this page. I use client and provider. Is it okay? It is needed actually because you are using a use effect here. If you are, you have to use client over here. Yeah, I think you're a little confused. When the control reaches here, it doesn't mean you move to the next line. यहाँ पे control is stuck. If there are other tasks that are running outside, वो run हो जाएंगे. But you don't move to the next line. When you're using async await, when this line of code runs, you are stuck here. The thread isn't stuck. Thread will start to do something else. JavaScript will find other tasks to do. Let's see if we can find some. This was your code. Let me add, yes, console.log, hi there, or whatever. Now this is fine. So, यहाँ पे क्या होगा? This code will run, and while this is happening, the thread will move here. और चीजें कुछ करनी है तो कर लेता हूँ. And then it will wait for it to come back. Then it will move here. Then it will wait for it to happen. Then it will move here. ऐसा नहीं होगा कि rest will be undefined here या data will be undefined here. It will not move line after line here. It will move on to other tasks that might exist. So if I run this, hi there gets printed because, in fact, let me, put another log here, console.log before sending request. So first this function will run, ye call hoga, then ye call hoga, then it will wait here. While it is waiting here, then it will move here. Let me put another log after it. Before sending the request, then it moved on to hi there, then it moved on to after. So what does that tell you? कि पहले ये line run हुई, then ये line run हुई, then it moved over here, then it came back over here, waited here, then after ran, and so on and so forth. Cool. It's a screenshot below. If you did not understand this, this will probably help you, understand it better. All right. I've created something for my convenience. All right. I am a little finicky using other people's fresh packages on my machine, so I will not. But unless I read through your code, which will take a long time. A lot of people are saying this. What is it? What did I miss? Open, recent. How many Brainly frontends do I have? Brainly, I have two of them. You're not wrong. There is Brainly frontend, there is Brainly main FE. Now I don't know which one of these is the right one. Okay, this probably is what you guys want. Yeah. Okay, GitHub, 100x, that's cohort 3. Brainly -frontend -2. So one of these, I don't know, I probably have different implementations or something. Git add dot git status git what the hell? Week 16 Brainly frontend. Okay, this looks right. So then there's the other one. Brainly main FE. So that might be it. I think you guys want this one. So let me know if this isn't it, but I think this might be it. All right. Cool. Let me post it in chat. What else? Answered this one. Answered this one. Answered this one. Answered this one. Answered that one. Then. Okay. Oh boy, we're at time. I need to sprint because I have to leave very quickly. 1 second. Best approach to sorry, I was starting Next.js create project, but my piece is very laggy because of Southside rendering. Could be like Next.js builds are very expensive. Dev mode shouldn't be too bad, but we'll see. Do crawlers with all the website? For example, such as they will crawl access to the things they can. They can't sign in. Like bot doesn't have access to a page. It doesn't understand. Oh, I have to sign in and reach the dashboard. जो page पे जा पाया. For example, if you go to the landing page of adbot100xs.com, you'll see some privacy policy, terms and conditions. So here it will go. It can't log in. यहाँ तक it will reach. It can't get inside. इतना bot में power नहीं है, दिमाग नहीं है. Does Next.js use WebSocket to communicate with the client like React does? If does, why is it slower? It probably does for, I would assume you're asking for hot module reloading. Why is it slower? I think it's just on your machine. For me, it's pretty fast. Can I improve UI of this? It seems perfectly balanced to me. It doesn't seem. Oh yeah, there's something up here, right? Thoda left pe video. Yeah, please do. Yes. We can do some projects from the repo. After all, we have to complete with no super 30. Oh yeah. Yeah, we can do projects after that. Auth, no real time. I think this might take time. Like there are a lot of things stacked up, specifically Web3 cohort. So I probably want to go there first. So not anytime soon. All right, done. Complete AI part of Brainly because AI is the whole new thing for me. Okay, we'll see. Make a note, Aryan, but I don't know if this will happen soon. Or I can ask Deepan to do it. Like he's built something like this very recently for us. Done. Alrighty, folks, we'll call it here. Sorry, wasn't able to answer doubts twice today because I have to rush right now. But I'll do an offline video this week for Next.js. There are a few offline videos I have to do for Web3 and then we'll go from there. With that, we'll end it, guys. Anything else? Any last minute thoughts, questions? is the bundle that React create returned in a single go? If yes, then why is it waterfalling? Oh, HTML is returned first. Then you understand, oh, it has JavaScript. Then JavaScript is returned. Then you understand, oh, I have to hit the backend. Then you hit the backend, and then you finally render it. Could you understand the thought process of designing a backend schema for any project? It just comes with time. Quantitative foreign keys. However, I'm struggling to figure out when to introduce additional things like tags. Oh, okay, yeah, because tags are a little hard. Like it's not. I mean, if this is the first time you're doing database schema, tags are many to many, right? Yes, so that's why it's a little hard. One to many is simple. User content, one to many. Content tag is many to many. A content can have multiple tags. A tag can be connected to multiple contents. That is something I wanted to cover today in Prisma. How do you do many to many relationships? So let me do that. तब समझ आ जाएगा. So yes, you're not able to do tags because it's a little hard. And the reason for that is it's a many to many relationship and not a one to many relationship. Baki, once you understand these three patterns, one to many, many to many, many to one, then your life isn't too difficult. Okay. Yesterday you were saying not to use multiple because I'm trying to implement second brain is easier to implement this feature. I mean any document inside. So yes, what is the easiest way to? The easiest way would be use Multer and render the PDF as such on the front end. Hard way would be upload it on S3 via pre-signed URLs. Have some listener running on S3 or some Lambda running on S3 that converts your PDF to images. Those images are what you serve on the front end. That's the easy way to do it. What is the use of TurboBack in that? I selected as yes, and the script tag has TurboBack. It's another bundler. They're like when you write React code, you can bundle it via some old ways. If you've heard of Create React app, some new ways like Vite. And similarly, TurboBack, I thought is being created by Vercel or the Vite guy, I don't know. But it's a bundler for Next.js. It's another way to bundle your Next.js application to JavaScript, HTML, CSS. So it would be faster. It's in Rust, so on and so forth. So that's why you may want to use it. But long story short, it's another bundler for your Next.js application. Could you please upload to? I will try my best to